So let's go back to the first thing that we have talked about, the contradiction. The mathematician, when he reads Leviticus 19:15, he says that treat everyone the same, no preference elsewhere. He's being perfectly logical, but at the same time, he is wrong in one place where being wrong matters. The reasonable reading is to be fair to everyone and everyone is equal, but there is an issue with that because God too chooses, and God's chosen is not the same act as the chosen act of ranking in the church, because the church prices men by their sign. It looks at the ring, something that they have already had, and it gives them something on top of that. But God constitutes man by choosing them. The man has nothing and he is given something. God's chosen exalts a man who has nothing and makes him equal to others, while the church's chosen exalts a man above his level. It double exalts him and makes him again an equal to others, which is exactly what Saint Augustine says over and over again, and he wrote about this problem because it bothers him. And the last one that I love to talk about is that the commandments, or the commandment, was never going to be enough. We have Zizioulas in Being as Communion. He says all of that. You can pause and read it. It talks about the hypostatic constitution of the person, us as human beings. When we are born into this world, we don't choose anything, and at the same time, we are given our hypostatic, our nature, and then we are given our ability to be a person. And in being given all of that, we are excluded from other things. For that, I was born into this specific family, so everyone else is a stranger, and my behaviors too follow that same action, that I treat people who are in a category that I belong to differently to people who are in another category. And the law demands for me that I love my neighbor, and to love without exclusiveness, and to do this not out of conformity with a moral commandment, but out of the hypostatic constitution, which is very strange. That is what James calls royal blood. And Zizioulas says ordering a biological hypostasis, something we are born into, to produce non-exclusive love does not ever work, which means the church seating the rich man, and the rich man being seated in his place, according to the breaking of the rules, in itself is not wicked. It is natural. It is acting according to your nature, the nature that was given to you. And that was a weird thing to think about, to see that the things the Gospels call wicked in a way or another are things that are natural to our flesh. For the things that are wicked are what's natural for the flesh. And as a close, it talks about the pagan world and their collapse to the idea of person, and how their view about who the person is, in a way or another, problematic for them. For you see, the wisdom of the old says that the person is who he is, the nature of the human being, plus the rank or fate. The Greeks believe in the rank, and the others believe in fate, or is it the opposite? The Romans believe in the rank. The Greeks believe in the fate that you are given and you are bound to lose regardless. So for you as a person to act, you are bound by things you do not control, and in you acting accordingly, you do nothing wrong. But the gospel says that this should not be the case at all. And the way it shows is that through the word prospon, which meant mask. And James names the sin as prospolempsia, which is receiving that mask, which is the exact thing that we were talking about. And on what is lost outside communion, the person becomes a being. For when you look at a person and you look at communion, at theosis, whatever you wanna call it. Zizioulas says condemnation to eternal death is nothing other than a person's being allowed to decline into a thing. For you stop being a person and you become a thing. For your sin was that you looked at others and called them things. And your punishment would be too to be called a thing, that is, to get I did not know you in Matthew. Now let's go back to that room, because I might have confused you a little bit, but neither man in verse 2 or 3 has a name. They are just called stuff. They are called by the things. The rich man has a sign, and the sign does the work, and the work has a name. The poor man has nothing. He is described entirely about what he lacks. So, the sin of face receiving has produced a man with no face. We look at a man and we remove the face and we call him a thing. That is the sin, and that is what it does. This is why James 2:13 is standing on. And it is standing on Matthew 25, which ends on the words Zizioulas quotes, which is, I never know you. The judgment for treating men as things is to be treated as a thing too, to be unknown, to be, at the last, the man on the floor, the man who is technically free too. So, James is using a Septuagint idiom. It is not a 4th century Trinitarian vocabulary. The Cappadocians are 300 years downstream of him. He did not mean do not perceive the pagan ontology of the person. And anyone who tells you he did is selling you something. This is conversions. It's not intention. He was just using what was known to that word. Again, the poor man in verse 2 arrives in shabby clothes. 13 verses later, he is talked upon again by using a brother or a sister, the same man, same clothes. The works in this famous faith and works argument are not abstract works. They are defined by pointing back at the guy from the top of the chapter. But James never changed the subject at all, because verse 13 is not, or is the hinge, not a closing flourish. Mercy triumphs over judgment, and immediately what good is it if someone claims to have faith but no deeds? The deeds are mercy, which James means, or which means James' work and Paul's work of the law are not the same object. That is for the next episode, so that we can see the distinguishment of what they are talking about, both of them. And it is not contradictory, it's just a different category. So check out the next video for this.